First Strike, First Look here on VSiN. Dave Ross alongside Britton Hess as we break down this weekend's card. Britton, great to have you back in the program, my friend. We look ahead to Alexa Grasso against Viviane Araujo in the main event here. And I've noticed as fight week has gone on, we all had a week off from the UFC last week. We're back in business now. This number is ticked up now. Alexa Grasso here now a minus 215 betting favorite on a Tuesday. What do you make of the line move, and what do you make of the main event on Saturday night?
I think it's maybe just a younger fighter steam, maybe a little bit more UFC hype behind Grasso. Viviane Araujo is 35, been around a little bit, has been in like 8 consecutive decision fights. So I don't think that there's a lot of hype behind her. And we've got Grasso coming off a submission win versus a popular fighter in Joanne Wood. So I think that might affect it. But spoiler alert, I think this line's getting a little bit inflated at this point.
Ooh, so you think there might be a live dog scenario here. I'm looking at the total, of course, as we see in most women's fights. Britton, you know this very well. It is over 4.5 rounds, juiced heavily to minus 220. So you mentioned Grasso coming off that impressive sub to get the win her last time out against Joanna Wood. What do you make now of that total plus money here, plus $1.80 if you like this fight to end inside of 4.5 rounds?
I think that 4.5, it makes sense. Like I said, Araujo's been in like 8 consecutive decisions, and that sub was the first sub in Grasso's career, I believe. So it's not like she does that all the time. She's got 9 decision victories out of her 14. And, whoever losses were decisions as well. The one thing that gives me a little bit of a reservations about that total being 4.5 and so heavily juiced to the over is that neither of these women have fought 5-round fights before. It's the biggest stage they've ever been on. They've never, fought like title fights like this. They're the main event. If you look at the names on the undercard, it's like, wait, why is this the big one? Just because they're not particularly exciting fighters and they're not particularly huge names. But that said, if the card is the UFC just makes the card, we analyze them. So we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Britton. Again, kind of as we try to think of pathways to victory here, we know Araujo would like to get this fight down to the ground, but we know that Grasso, as we mentioned with that win over Joanna Wood, not necessarily deficient if this fight does go down to the ground. How do you see this fight playing out? Do you think it becomes Grasso trying to use the hands, or do you think we might see some rolling around the mat here and submission attempts?
I think that they're going to try to stay up, honestly. Well, and I think that when they do go down, it'll be a lot of stalemates. So if the judges or the ref is active, they'll be standing them back up. I mean, like I said, Araujo has 4 subs in her career. She got 3 KOs. So that's kind of a lot of subs for or finishes for a 125-pound woman. But that said, I think that just level of competition, she's not going to get clean shots probably on Grasso. And I don't think either one of them is really going to be able to make too much happen on the ground. Because like I said, neither of them are huge, amazing aces. I said Araujo has 4 subs, but she hasn't had one in a while. I mean, her last one was in 2017. So and that obviously since then her level of competition has gone up as well. So but like I said, I think that the no-brainer is like, throw over 4.5 and a parlay minus 220, get that juice down. But like I said, when people aren't experienced in these situations, things can get a little bit weird. And we talked about it when Sandhagen fought a few weeks ago. Against oh my gosh, how am I remembering it or forgetting his name? Was it Song Yudong?
Exactly.
Yeah, when he fought Song Yudong, and I said on the show that Yudong hasn't really been in this situation before. He might gas out, and he got the judges stopped it in the 4th round because he didn't know really how to manage his damage he was taking, and he took too much, and the doctor said, "No, you're done." Before they got to the 5th round, the underhit. I think these women are a little bit more experienced. They probably won't get in that situation. But that said, they do both have finishes in their career, and like I said, they've never fought the full 25. So anything is possible.
Exactly. In a main event for women not used to going all 5 rounds, even though it's juiced heavily to the over 4.5, you never know how that does play out. So if you like it inside the distance, that could shorten some of the price tags, certainly on the favorite Grasso at minus 215. In the co-main event of the evening, Britton, we got a very interesting one with Cub back into the octagon. Everybody loves to watch Cub Swanson fight, but he's a sizable underdog against Jonathan Martinez here, plus $1.75. Martinez minus 205. Does the old man have one great fight left in him?
Yeah, I think the UFC did Cub a favor in scheduling Martinez, not because Martinez isn't really good, but Martinez isn't necessarily a brutal finisher, one-punch KO power. His KO finishes have come in flurries, with TKOs where, the guy gets injured and then he just keeps on, peppering him until the ref steps in. So I think that's good because Cub at his age, taking a big strike is, can be fatal for the fight. But that said, I love Jonathan Martinez. Just he's one of the most fun fighters to watch. When he fights, it's like he's in the gym, like instruction videos. He's so clean with all of his techniques, kicks, punches, movement. He just really understands, what he's doing. And like I said, he's not like overly powerful, so he has to compensate for that with technique. But that said, since he's probably not going to be knocking Cub Swanson out early, he's going to have to deal with Cub's creative strikes, which is not easy for anybody. So I'm really looking forward to this fight. I mean, I kind of wish it was the main event, just because 5 rounds of this would be a fun one. Because I don't necessarily see a super fast finish in this one unless something fluky happens. But that said, I'm really looking forward to this fight. And I would probably say it goes the distance, and I would lean to Jonathan Martinez via decision.
And they're over 2.5. It's a little bit priced a little bit more favorably than the main event, minus $1.60 if you do think that it's going to go over 2.5 rounds and you like this fight potentially to go the distance, so you can see why there could be some value there. The under, by the way, plus $1.30 if we get a stoppage inside of 2.5 rounds. All right, let's keep going down. You look at Askarov here against Brandon Royval. This is a very intriguing matchup as well. We know how creative Royval can be. We know what Askarov wants to do, and that's wrestle. How do you see this one playing out? Askarov right now a big favorite, minus 240. The comeback on Royval, plus $2.
Well, it's actually a really interesting matchup. Good job to the UFC matchmakers on this one, because Royval is one of the most exciting fighters. He's got finishes from the feet. He's got the craziest jiu-jitsu moves. You have him, planted on his back, and all of a sudden the ankle is coming up around your throat, and you're trying to figure out what to do. And Askarov just wants to take you down. He wants to take you down and lean on you. He's kind of that stereotypical Russian fighter who wants to control you on the mat as long as possible, as much as possible, and land some ground and pound here, but not necessarily devastating blows for the KO. And I think that because of his style, I think that actually leaves Royval live in this as a plus $2 or underdog, just because he can do so many weird things. He's so long for the weight class. And, if Askarov thinks that he's going to be able to plant him on the ground and hold him there for 15 minutes, he's mistaken. My one concern is Royval always gets hurt because he is always doing all this crazy stuff, and their shoulders are coming out of their socket. Yeah. He eats a lot of punches to land a takedown, or, he's one of the wildest fighters out there, but I think that he actually has a shot in this. If we remember, Askarov's last fight was against Kai Kara-France, and I actually leaned for Askarov because I didn't think Kai Kara-France's wrestling defense was good enough to avoid getting taken down. I was totally wrong. What they've been doing at City Kickboxing is super impressive. He's definitely learned from Volkanovski and Stylebender in that regard. But this is a totally different fight. Like I said, Royval will strike to try to set up a takedown, to try to get in a clinch and try to do some weird submission attempts. And I think that, once again, like Kai Kara-France impressed me. He didn't get taken down. Royval will say, take me down. I dare you. It'll be just one of those fights.
No doubt. And by the way, over 2.5 rounds is minus $1.40 on this one. The under there, plus $1.10. So again, if Askarov has his way and gets him down to the mat, that might not be as easy to hold him down, a guy like Brandon Royval, for 15 minutes. So that over, not just that heavily at minus $1.40 here for over 2.5 rounds. Let's keep going down to the main card. Jordan Wright against Duska Todorovic here. Todorovic over a $2 betting favorite. Jordan Wright plus $1.75 in the comeback here. Any upset potential in this matchup?
100%, because Jordan Wright is the crazy, what Royval is the crazy jiu-jitsu guy. Jordan Wright is trying, his nickname is Beverly Hills Ninja. He tries to land kung fu moves like he's in the movie Beverly Hills Ninja. He's out there throwing spinning kicks, elbows, Superman punches, anything possible, and he eats a lot of shots because he has no defense. He's got the most legendary pre-UFC record. If I'm not mistaken, his opponents before he entered the UFC had a combined record of about 3-35. So he had all these highlights against, kind of cans out there. But, he did get a KO in the UFC. He's almost knocked out a few people. His Joaquin Buckley fight was one of the most, wild things we've ever seen. And even Marc-Andre Barriol, he landed a few, but he got taken down and got submitted in that one. So Dusko Todorovic is also a really good striker. He's not necessarily a submission wrestler, and he doesn't really have the power that Jordan Wright does. He if he gets a KO, it's probably going to be via attrition, not kind of a one-punch thing. Todorovic is 1-3 in his last 4. He did beat Maki Potolo at the end of the first round, but Maki Potolo is not necessarily the greatest. And also, I think that was a little bit of a back-and-forth fight before then. I think that maybe Todorovic tries to take him down just to stop, the crazy flurry on the feet. And I think that, I don't know what the odds are offhand. I don't know if they're up yet, but I do think that this is a fight that ends via KO. I don't know who. One of them is probably going to get KO'd.
Oh, to your point here, how about this? The under right now for 1.5 rounds of this potential 3-round fight, it's juiced to the under minus 210. So, Britton, you don't see that very often. Over a round and a half is plus $1.70. So, as you mentioned, it feels like somebody's going out. Is it the Beverly Hills Ninja? Is it Todorovic who's going to be able to get the stoppage here? But the odds makers out here in Las Vegas are saying, if you think this fight's going to go over 7.5 minutes, you can get good solid plus money at plus $1.70. You're playing the under. Do you think that's why it's such a big favorite here, minus 210 under a round and a half?
The only way it doesn't happen is if Todorovic managed to get Wright down and kind of hold him there. But I mean, the thing is that Wright doesn't really have too great of jiu-jitsu defense anyway. So, maybe he gets submitted even if he does get taken down. Mm-hmm. The thing is though, in 16 pro fights, Jordan Wright has made it to the second round twice. One ended 18 seconds into the second round. The other one ended 48 seconds into the second round. So he doesn't really go very far, regardless of whose opponent is. He's fought guys that are decision fighters, and guess what? He's like, no, we're not going deep. That's not my style. So it's kill or be killed pretty much from the get-go with him in there. He's super fun, not necessarily the greatest, most technical guy, but he's always going for the highlights. So at least UFC's getting their money worth there.
No question about it. The final card fight on the main card here is Misha Cirkunov against Alonzo Menefield here. Menefield over a $2 betting favorite. Do you think this one is priced accordingly?
It's kind of high, but at the same time, Cirkunov has been trying to find success. He's been going down to 185, back at 205 for this fight. I think that he's on the wrong end of his career. I think he's 35, 37, getting up there in age. And he's been KO'd a good bit lately. I think Menefield has a lot of power. I think Menefield should be able to finish him. And I think Menefield just kind of on the Menefield still has a little bit more meat on the bone in his career than Cirkunov as it does at this point.
And Menefield, by the way, the under juiced a little bit, minus $1.25 for under a round and a half. So I think people are thinking like you, Britton, that this fight could be Menefield earlier rather than later. If you like the over a round and a half, that's a minus $1 fight. Any fight in the prelims, Britton, here on a Tuesday here, First Strike, First Look, that you think maybe changes before we have the conversation on First Strike on Friday? Any number that stands out to you?
Tetsuo Taira, the Japanese fighter, he's young. I think he's like 24. He's 11-0, and he's a big favorite. I think he's a good parlay piece. I think that he's really good, and he could be a title contender one day. He kind of wetted his UFC beak last time out against Carlos Candelero. I think there was a little bit of people thinking, Taira hasn't proved against anyone with a pulse. Let's take the underdog. And it was a pretty one-sided decision outside of the fact I think Taira tired a little bit at the end. So as long as Taira kind of is learning and advancing, I think he should be able to beat CJ Vergara. Not saying Vergara is not a dangerous and impressive fighter. I just think Taira is kind of one of those guys that we're going to see in main events, not too far down the line.
Yeah, Tetsuo right now, Taira is minus 230. Vergara right now on the comeback plus $1.95. But I'm picking up what you're putting down. I like where your head's at. Hey, Britton, really appreciate you breaking it down with your expertise here. First Strike, First Look. And again, everybody, do not forget we're back for the full hour. First Strike on VSiN on Friday, the Sports Betting Network.